Hello, I'm CinematicCritic, fresh off from Finding Dory. I'm gonna get a lot of flack because I'm not gonna give this a 10 or an 11 or even a 9. Thinking about it, let's see if this can even get an 8 from me. Because while I'm not gonna demote it to a 5, or I may still give it a 6. So it's a 6, a 7, or an 8. I just didn't think it was all that special. We'll start out with my personal opinion first before I get into the actual review of the plot and the characters. It was kind of the same story, just with Dory taking Nemo's part and Nemo taking Dory's place. We met a set of colorful characters who, help our group along the way, help Nemo, and the name is misleading. Finding Dory is all about her finding her family, and you could tell that by the trailers. But even when she finds her family, it's kind of the same plot. It just wasn't anything special. Okay, it was finding Nemo's from finding. It was Finding Dory. Just I don't know how else to describe it. But let's talk about let's talk about the characters, the voice acting, and the plot, because talking about the plot is the only way that I'm going to be able to further clarify what I mean when I say this was Finding Nemo all over again. Not to say there was necessarily a bad thing, not to say there weren't new aspects, and we'll get into those when I talk about plot, even in the non-spoiler section. Totally honest, this one is not as much of a... this was not as dramatic. This one's more... There's a little less maturity in this one. It's a little funnier. So, oddly enough, even though this one may not critically be as good, in my opinion, if I was in a bad mood and I needed a movie to cheer me up and these were my two choices, I'd actually probably go for Finding Dory. Because, it's kind of weird to say, but this is a movie that, even though it may critically not be as good as the original, you may actually want to watch it more. Not for the plot, not for the characters, but for the actual actions that happen in the movie, because it is funnier. So think about that. It's still, no matter what rate I give even if I give it a 6, which would normally be a not recommend. 6 is not always an avoid, so even if I do end up giving it a 6, which I don't think I'm gonna now that I think about it, it's gonna be a 7 or an 8. Even if I do end up giving it a 6, I'd still recommend you see this, though, especially if you're a Finding Nemo fan, a Pixar fan. You like a comedy, you like Ellen DeGeneres, the voice of Dory, Albert Brooks, Marlin. Talking about Marlin, basically, and this was one of the big issues with the film, erase everything he learned in the last film, and like I said, replace Dory with Nemo, and now he has to go find Dory, or find his family. And one of the biggest issues in this is he keeps putting down Dory. And then ultimately, of course, he's like, at the end, he's like, I have to think like Dory. What would Dory do? And then we get some of these funny moments, like a moment where they're on sprayers at the institute that they go to. I forget the exact... basically, they go to some type of aquarium and they're on sprayers, and they got to try to find Dory there, where Dory's searching for her parents. Again, we'll get into that in plot. Ed O'Neill as Hank, this octopus who shows up in this film, and first time I saw it, here comes another character. Hank is pretty much the replacement for the fish in the fish tank for us. sort of guide, instead of the fish tank guiding along Nemo, we've got this octopus that sort of guides along Dory. It also gets help. Caitlin Olsen as Destiny. And, oh, yeah, that was Destiny, the whale shark, was actually one of my favorite characters in this movie. She was funny, and so was Ty Burrell as Bailey, the beluga whale. Or not beluga whale, or was it yeah, I think it was a beluga whale. Echolocation. His gag was he didn't have his echolocation working, and he and Destiny kind of argued, and then came together to help everyone in the end, of course. Hayden, full name please. Hayden Rollins as Nemo. About as good as he was in the first film. About as grown up as he was at the end of the first film. So that was relieving that he kept his maturity. Props to the movie on that. Jenny, Charlie, Young Dory. Young Dory, we'll talk about that when we get to her backgrounds. Luke or Mr. Ray, So, pretty good voice actor, all in all. But let's get into what I really think of this. The characters in the story are big things. So, our 7 main points. Number 1. The backstory that haunts the central character. It's the start of our setup, and sometimes it's the start of the setup. In this case, it is definitely the start of a setup. It is. Now, to be fair, I came into the movie 5 minutes late. Yeah, my bad. But it was either that or see the 2D one. The 3D, by the way, I should say, if 2D is available and 3D is not, you don't need to see the 3D. There are movies out there that are gimmicky in their 3D and constantly throw 3D things at you. And then there are those like this one who don't use it to their full potential, and you forget you're watching a 3D movie. And this was unfortunately one of those. So I know I was not at my Swansea I know I was not at the Swansea Theater, which has better 3D projectors, but I mean, I've seen 3D here at my local theater before that's better, so looking at the movie, I just don't think that it's not worth the extra money for 3D. Yeah. Anyway, back to the story. The backstory is that Dory starts remembering certain things of her family, and during the intro when I was coming in, it was showing like how she came to meet Marlin one day. She was trying to ask, "Have you seen my family? Have you seen my family?" And they were like, "What do they look like?" And she was like, because she can't remember, of course. And throughout this whole entire film, she does continue to have her short-term memory loss, which I was scared they were going to get rid of, but thankfully they did it because it provides many comedic moments as it did in the original, and with her being the focus, more comedic moments. The more and more I talk about it, the more and more I think I might actually go with an 8 after all. Catalyst gets the character moving, incite an incident, it completes the story setup. That would be, of course, her remembering her family is somewhere in California. Now, instead of getting this great big trip across the ocean, Marlin actually calls on Crush, the turtle from the first film. He's only seen for a few minutes, and they ride the Californian current, just like they rode the Australian current in the first film. And 1 minute later, we are in California. So they did take this film a different way. It wasn't a travel across the sea movie. It was a, here we go, here's California, time to go through this entire aquarium or this research center, whatever you want to call it. It was kind of both. It was They had an aquarium there. They had a whole bunch of exhibits. It was also rehabilitation. They called it quarantine, but it was like a rehabilitation center where animals. Basically, you could do one of two things. You could either be in quarantine, where you would be, basically be fixed up and sent back to the ocean, which is the Hank the octopus. Was going on with him. And then there was the other option is you could be there for years and years, as with Destiny and as with her parents, and had originally been intended for her in their like aquarium. Or the third option is you could be shipped out to another aquarium somewhere else as permanent. And these were basically the three main options that were presented. So it's like, well, we're going to go ahead and assume for the moment that her family is indeed in the aquarium part. And we find out from Destiny, who's been there since Dory was a child, Destiny the, no, not the beluga whale, the whale shark, that her parents are in the open ocean exhibit. So, we know where they are. They're in the open ocean exhibit, and Dory has to get there. So they're at this facility, and now they get separated when Marlin tells her, like she's making trouble and everything, and ultimately they get separated. She's brought to the institute. They have to find a way in. They find a way in, and this is when we start meeting all these interesting characters, just like the characters from the fish tank in Finding Nemo. Characters like these two seals, kind of like the two not seagulls, pelicans, the two pelicans, Nigel and whatever the other one's name was, kind of like them. Except they play a bigger part in this, much bigger part, but we'll get into that later. Destiny, she plays a huge part in this. And she basically tells Dory that she can find her parents by swimming through these pipes and getting into this ocean exhibit, the open ocean exhibit, and Dory meets Hank, and he's like, I want to get out of here. I want to get to that main aquarium because he's in quarantine. And, well, he wants to be free, basically. So we got these funny moments with Nemo and Marlin trying to catch up to Dory. And the seals give him that they call over this bird and say that the bird's going to get him there, and Marlin, of course, being the ever doubtful person, doesn't quite trust the bird and actually leaps out at one point, and the bird picks the bucket back up and flies and puts it right on top of the quarantine building, and they're stuck in a fish tank. Yeah. And by this point, she's making her way to the tank. And will it be a happy reunion? Well, allow me 1 second to put on the spoiler hat. A reminder that the spoiler hat means that I will be talking about spoilers moments later in the film. When the spoiler hat comes off, if I can find the spoiler hat, I think I'm sitting on it. Excuse me 1 second. I am sitting on the spoiler hat. Bad Brian. New plan. You know what? I don't have time to do that, so I don't have to put the thing on. I just have to put on the spoiler hood. It's the spoiler hood tonight. When the hood comes off, it means you're safe to unmute the video and hear my summary, or if you want spoilers, here we go. So, the midpoint of the movie, I just basically went over it. The moment of deep motivation. She gets there and her parents, surprise, surprise, are not in the open ocean exhibit. Yeah, kind of saw that coming. At the same time, not completely. I thought maybe there was a chance that she would be there, but the film did need a little more. And that also kind of, the crisis is the low point, the turning event, the key decision. This would be where basically she thinks that, and she remembers some more memories. And she remembers she was sucked away by some undercurrent, under some undertow, and it was actually the pipes, and she was the reason. It was her fault, or her fault, so she says, because that she was sucked in. It was an accident, needless to say, but it is technically her fault. I don't know if you want to say it was her fault, or if no one's fault maybe would be more accurate. Point is, she was accidentally sucked into the pipes and blown out into the ocean. Or somehow made it into the ocean, I should say. She's able to call up Destiny because she can communicate with whales, of course. And this time, instead of just being sucked out, Destiny helps guide her to the quarantine, back to the quarantine, because apparently all the blue tangs, which is what Dory is, are being moved. They're being moved to a permanent aquarium somewhere else. They're being moved from the Institute to an aquarium. And Dory's got to find her parents. And again, she gets there to the tank. She runs into Marlin and Nemo on the way. They all run into each other, pipe. And the Hank the octopus gets them to the tank, and it's happily ever after. No, her parents are not there. This was good because this was what the movie needed, that I think Finding Nemo actually lacked, was a big final sequence. The doctor's office wasn't that great. The dentist office wasn't a great final scene, in my opinion, whereas this movie definitely had one. And that would be that Dory, they all start going to, Dory finds out that, first of all, I should mention that all the other blue tangs recognize Dory, and they're like, oh, your parents went looking for you, they left, they're out in the ocean somewhere. So, like, okay. And now she needs to get back to the ocean, but she's got a problem, and that's that they're locked up and they're all put on this truck to go to the aquarium, including Nemo and Marlin, and she escapes and gets dumped back in the ocean, where her forgetfulness again gets her lost. And she's like, okay, I don't remember anything. Who am I? Where am I? And she just tries really, really hard. And she's able to remember that she likes shells. And she follows this path of shells. And this is a big thing in the movie. She's like, she likes shells. She really likes shells. And she follows this path of shells to a spot right outside the institute where she actually runs in to her family. And they do this hilarious thing where the family has like gathered up coral bits and shells, and they've got it like here, like they were really old, but then they just all drop them, and it's like they're the same. Okay, yeah, this is the parents. So we found Dory found her parents, and her parents kind of have the nervous reaction that Marlin originally had in the first one, which is like, Dory, you can't try to rescue those guys. We just got you back. And she just tells her father and her mother, they're like family to me too. I need to try to rescue them. And this is where this would be the equivalent of, I think, the moment in Finding Nemo where the just keep swimming thing. They try to save all the fish and Dory, who's trapped inside of the fish, by swimming down and breaking the net. That's from Finding Nemo 1. In this one, the goal is to free Nemo and Marlin from the truck. And this was my favorite part of the movie. The moments where they were chasing after the truck, they managed to convince Destiny and Bailey to jump out of their cells, or habitats, I should say, their exhibits. And they jump into the main ocean and they start, Bailey used they were like, yes, you can fix your echolocation. And by this point in time in the movie he has, and now he's using his echolocation to track the truck like some type of sonar. And he's like, I got it. They're moving this way and that way. And then he and Destiny and Dory are all following this truck, and they get to this bridge where like there's this plan with otters who looking cute, and all the all the all the otters like line up on the bridge and make a barricade, and everyone's like, oh, look at how cute they are, and they distract while Dory flies is like, I forget how she does exactly, but she manages to get into the truck and starts to release everybody, but then she succeeds, and then she gets stuck in the truck, and Nemo and Marlin, it's a mess. Nemo and Marlin are back into the water, and now they need to rescue Dory. Let's just say it ends with the truck jumping into the water because Hank takes over it, and hilarity that only Pixar can do. Like, the cops all got they don't know what's going on, so they got all their guns pointed up, and it's like, and they've got to barricade themselves to stop this runaway truck, but instead the truck goes off the side and dives in the ocean, and they're like, huh? And then it's pretty much over after that, actually. Hank decides to go live in the ocean because Dory makes a big speech about how she considers him her family too. Family themes very well in this movie. So number 6, climax is showdown. I pretty much just gave you that. The last one, the realization occurs when the audience sees that the character has changed. Well, I say that every character had a bit of a change in this film. We'll start with Dory. Dory is Dory. I'm not sure that she had a change so much as she succeeded in doing what she wanted to do and finding her parents. It seems like Marlin might have changed a bit. He might have, pretty much the same problem he had with Nemo he had with her. He was being a little too protective, and he seemed to loosen up even more in this film than in the last film. So, continue on through the two films, I guess. Nemo is Nemo, I would say, just because Nemo was not the target of this movie. He was sort of there, I will say, as sort of something to make Marlin to keep Marlin in check. Like, say, in fact, like, Dad, we gotta think like Dory, or Dad, you weren't very nice to Dory right there, stuff like that. So that was Nemo's role in this, so it was actually pretty cool. So is Finding Dory as good as the original? I don't know. It's different. It's better in some ways, like the comedy. I feel like the overall plot was actually better. In other ways, it's kind of like a rehash. when push comes to shove, I just can't give this a 7. And I can't give it a 6. I gotta give it an 8. It's not a 9, but it's an 8, which is still a recommend for me. A recommend is a 7 or above, and sometimes a 6 if it's a really good movie. But in this case, I'm giving it an 8, so we don't even have to worry about that. Let's see, what does an 8 mean again? An 8 is a, oh, really good. So I would not say it's a 9, a gotta go. It's not absolute. But I would say it's absolute if you're a Pixar, Disney, Finding Nemo fan. If you're an Ellen DeGeneres fan, it's very funny. You'd like that. If you're into this type of movie, you'd like it. All in all, it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be as a critical success as I said, like the first one was. It's not groundbreaking, not like Inside Out, or even The Good Dinosaur. I'd honestly probably rather watch. Well, no, that's pushing it too far. I'd rather watch this over Good Dinosaur, but I'd probably rather watch Inside Out over this, just because of the plot issues and the character issues in here, but. The actual overall feel in this movie is I'd say better. Like, its atmosphere, it all happens in one place, but they manage to do oh so much in this one place, and they're able to make it even funnier than the previous film. It's just a little less mature. It's a little more targeted towards kids than the other ones. Adults may not find as much stuff. But that's what I have to say. CinematicCritic signing off. See you in the next one.